This is AUGforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Repay. Repay offers omni-channel integrated payment solutions for Acumatica users. Whether you are making B2B payments or collecting them, Repay is your full-service payments provider. Power up your payments to empower your business and accelerate the AP and AR payment flow through one seamless integration. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Velixo. Velixo is an award-winning provider of Excel-based reporting solutions for Acumatica. With Velixo, you can build financial, project, and other business reports in Excel with live Acumatica data in just a few minutes and get the answers you need. If you know Excel, you can do it. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. Guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Monday, February 21st, 2022, and this is episode number 71, Geoff Ashley, ERP Partner Ecosystems. Geoff, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for allowing me the honor of being able to participate. Glad to be here.
Well, I always like to start off with every guest getting your brief origin story. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to college? What was your first job out of college, and where do you live now?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in the Midwest. So I was born and raised in the state of Iowa, Des Moines, which is right in the middle of the state. When I graduated from high school, at the time, my goal was to go into the United States Navy. So I had 2 senatorial and 1 congressional nomination to the United States Naval Academy. So that's where I thought I was going to be going. And I got redshirted because I played running back. And at the time, Napoleon McCallum was a Heisman Trophy candidate already at Navy. And Eddie Myers, who was the next Heisman Trophy candidate, was actually in the same class at Naval Academy Prep School as I was. So, I'm at a time when they probably had more people that were Heisman Trophy candidates in my position than they ever had in the history of the whole place. So I worked like crazy just to even make the team and stay on the team. And I guess tried a little too hard. I got injured and could not play anymore. And that kind of destroyed that whole idea, that whole vision, that whole career path. So I went back to Iowa, finished my college, graduated from the University of Northern Iowa, degree in business management. And then my first job was back on the East Coast. So I came back to Maryland, which is, United States Naval Academy territory. Had met some people when I was out on the East Coast, and one of them was nice enough to offer me a job right out of school. And right out of school, that job was selling ERP software. Now, I'm very old. So we're talking about 1982. So if you think about what was interesting about 1982 is that's the first year that the personal computer had any real relevance for businesses. They couldn't do accounting prior to that because there was no hard drive. There was no DOS 2.0 was just being released, which allowed for a hard drive. So you can't store all of your data if you don't have a place to store it. So that's how early I was in this. I started almost day one with the IBM PC and the hard drive selling selling accounting software to small to medium enterprises. And I spent about
Which one was it? Which product was it? It was IBM?
Well, now you're really going back. You wouldn't probably know it. When I first started, it was called Jewel, but that quickly became ABM, which then became Platinum Software. So all three of
That
those
one
names,
I've heard of.
yeah,
Platinum
all
I've
three
heard
of
of.
those
Okay.
names were the same company. And then Platinum eventually became Epicor. So I started out very, very early on selling ERP. And back in those days, you sold the software, the hardware, the network, and you implemented and installed and supported it all, which is, again, something that over the years, everything became more and more complex with everybody getting their own specialties. But back in the day, I did all of that. And I spent about 8 years as a value-added reseller selling ERP and local area networks and that type of stuff. And then I moved into the publisher world, and really all but about 2 years of my life have been spent building channels, ERP, mid-market, all of that. So complex business solutions. So that's what I do. That's what I've done. I've lived all up and down the East Coast, started in Maryland, as I said, moved to Florida, moved to Georgia, spent some time in Connecticut, spent some time, or now live in New Hampshire, about 45 minutes north of Boston. Been here for a while, and not probably, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you, this is where this is it. This is where we end. Got 3 daughters and 7 grandchildren, and 2 out of the 3 daughters and 4 out of the 7 grandchildren live right here, right near us. So we're not moving anymore. So New Hampshire, that's our home now. And I've basically spent my career, again, as I said, working for publishers, building channels. Most recently, up until fourth quarter of last year, I worked for Acumatica, and I was their vice president of partner strategy and programs. Was there a little over, or almost exactly, actually, 4 years, a couple weeks older than 4 years, and really helped to build that channel and that ecosystem, and help that company grow to where it is. And then I have just recently, and actually I just started back up again 3 weeks ago with my consulting company that I had before joining Acumatica, Geoff Ashley and Associates. So now I'm going to go back to my roots, and I'm going to support all those channels that I built. So I'll support Microsoft, I'll support SAP, I'll support Acumatica, I'll support Sage, and those hundreds and hundreds of partners that I've worked with over all the years.
Do you primarily work with publishers? Is that correct? That's your main client?
No, actually, I work with all the above. So when I work with publishers, it's helping the publishers build their channel programs. So I help them build frameworks. I help them come up with, the best in class type programs that they can take out to the marketplace to build an indirect channel of partners. But I also work directly with the partners, and actually, I've only been doing it now for 3 weeks, starting back up again, but I already have a couple clients, and those clients are VARs. And most of the current pipeline are VAR organizations. So I'll probably be spending the better part of 2022 at least working with the VAR community, and then eventually moving in with the publishers. But I gotta get in, I gotta get stabilized, I gotta get the messages out there, and really find out where that's going to fit and resonate with the publishers themselves. But it's essentially the same message.
I'm curious then, what do you do for a VAR if they're already working in, an existing built out channel that's already defined for them? What then do you bring to the table for a VAR?
Well, I guess first and foremost is I help the partners. We'll do a couple things. One would be working with owners to help them determine how they're going to actually dominate within a marketplace. And I know that sounds weird. And if you're horizontal, it's impossible. But if you take a VAR, you say, look, we need to pick a vertical. We need to pick an industry, one where we know who lives there, when we know all the names of the people playing there. And as soon as you do that, two things can happen. We can create the box that you want to sell into that industry, and we can literally work to own the industry itself. We can be that dominant player, because we're not trying to be all things to all people anymore. So I think one of the first things I do for VARs is I help them to get some focus, to get a true understanding of what it means to be a thought leader, and to drive that thought leadership out to the marketplace. The other thing I do for VARs, again, primarily at the owner level, is help them understand the transition from professional services, where they all lived back since the 1980s when I worked there. It's always been a professional services model, and it's not anymore. It's now a subscription-based recurring model. It's a cloud. And that model is at its core fundamentally different from the professional services model. Professional services model, you're one consultant, one customer, one billable hour. And in the recurring revenue model, you're one consultant packaging value delivered 100 times for a subscription. So they're polar opposite if you think about it. And that's what I help them to understand. And that's what I help them to package so that we're clearly delivering a value from publisher through partner to customer. And that value is something that the customer perceives to be significant enough that they'll continue to pay a subscription year after year after year. So it really isn't, it's mission critical that we get that understanding and we get that approach.
And I'm curious there, you said you help them define a box and, an area of focus. Then do you take it as far as like doing market research to go find companies that fit into that box? Are you helping with content that helps to reach that box? How far do you go into it?
Yeah, good question. And honestly, it's all the above. So I work with partners to help them determine where they should be playing based on the capabilities that they have. I help them determine how to approach that marketplace and get as much visibility in the marketplace as they can, and how to work with associations and how to do one-to-many type marketing activities and things like that. I help them with their sales messaging. I help them with their demos and the pre-sales side of things. And maybe most important of all, I help them with their packaging of the content. If one of the things I say to partners and publishers all the time, and it's also important for the customers that may be listening in on the call, which is how people buy in our industry. The way people buy has changed really dramatically since the internet really took off. You go back to, again, probably 2006, I was already in the cloud with ERP, but it hadn't really taken off. But since it really started to take off, you think about it, it's estimated by Forrester, IDC, Gartner, doesn't matter which one you read, up to 70% of a buying decision has been made by the prospect before they interact with a human. So if you think about that, if our prospects, our prospective customers, if they're all doing research before they're going to buy or even talk to us, they have to have research they can do. There has to be content to find and to download and to share within the organization. And if the content doesn't exist, as partners, we're losing our prospects before we even knew we had them. They're gone before we even knew they were there because they can't find content. So I help the partners to do that. The other thing, that some data to support this whole idea of content, it's estimated that around 92% of B2B, so business to business, these are complex business decision data. This is not, I'm going out and buying pencil erasers, right? So 92% of complex business solution buyers are more likely to purchase after reading some type of trusted review or content that they trust and put value into, 92%. And of that, you can get, the partners or the publishers will get up to 31% more money, 32% or 31% more money is being spent by those customers that are reading these reviews and downloading and using it as part of their research. They'll spend more money with you because they're more confident that you are who you say you're going to be. This is all in the research phase. And
since you're throwing out percentages, I'm curious if you have one on this. Everything you're describing to me sounds like a Google search. What percentage? Do you have a percentage like what is a Google search versus anything else? Talking to a trade organization or whatever.
Well, if you read Google's data, they will tell you it's well into the 90% of every customer or every prospect, does a Google search, right? So you can't wake up in the morning and go out and find anything without searching something for it. The vast majority of our world, and this is North American statistics, the vast majority of that world will use Google. They may use other things as well. They'll use LinkedIn and they'll use other avenues, but well over 90%, well over 95% of all B2B complex business solution buyers are using Google to search. So SEO and all that stuff, that's all important and all valid, but it doesn't do anything for you. Could get 8 million people to go to your website, but if they can't find any content, they'll spend 3 seconds there and then they'll go somewhere else. So it's all about the content. So I work with the partners to help them to do that. The last statistic I think you'll find amazingly interesting is Oracle. And again, complex solutions, right? Big, heavy duty, complex solutions. Oracle did a survey and found that up to 32% of ERP buyers will spend as much as $500,000 online. So they could spend up to
Wow,
$500,000 not
that is
talking to you.
surprising.
So if you cannot, it's undeniable. The way they buy has changed dramatically. So the way we sell has to change to fit that. And this is a really huge shift because again, all that content that we need to create, that's not billable. Right? So how does a partner do that? Where does it come from? Where do they put it? Where should they be putting it? Who are they creating it for? It's estimated now that up to 21 people are involved in any buying decision. Used to be 8. Right now it's 21. Not all 21 go to your website. So that means they're not only downloading the content, but then they're sharing it within the company once they get there. So you have to create content that's who has an audience that's very broad. Traditionally, VARs create content that appeals to the C-level people, CEOs, CFOs, people like that. You got to be appealing to all these other influencers because they're all getting it downloaded and shared with them. So totally different way of selling. And it's actually great for the customers because it's so easy to find information. And it's so easy to take it and download it, read it, and come fully educated and prepared and have good conversations about what is real value in the sell. We're not having to educate people about the mundane kinds of things. They've already downloaded videos and seen how to do all the easy stuff within the business. When they talk to the VARs now, they're saying, I need to know how I do this in my business. And so we get right to the point. So sales cycles are actually shorter, right? Which it makes sense. They're coming to us much more prepared. So as long as we're prepared for them when they get there, it's a very good, well, should be and has been historically a very good experience now.
And I'm totally with you about we'll call them a prospect, someone who's looking for, let's keep it on Acumatica, a new ERP system, and you've got content that resonates with the challenges they're having. And, they come to you as a VAR and you sell them Acumatica.
Yep.
But I'm actually more curious to get your take on, and this is a conversation that I kind of started with John Howell. I'm more curious to get your take on, all right, what happens after the sale? So, you mentioned subscription in there, and
Yep.
let's say I'm a customer and I bought Acumatica. I've been running it for a couple of years, and now my needs have changed, right? And I really resonate with that whole content, put it out there, reach a lot of people. That's why I started the AUGforums.com, the forums. Now Acumatica's kind of taken that and done their own forums, and it's great for the customer. The customer totally wins because they got all this content out there. But as a VAR, it's like, how do I make money with all the stuff? Let's use Acumatica's community.acumatica.com. How do I make money now when it's all going out there for free and everyone's participating for free? They're going to hackathons for free. What are your thoughts there on the customer who's been out there a couple of years? How do I, as a VAR, continue to serve them and actually get paid for it?
Yeah, and again, the great thing about the way our industry has evolved, much more so than any other industry I can think of at the moment, is, and if you think about where we are in our history, this is the first time in the history of our industry where what the publishers want, what the VARs want, and what the customers want are all in alignment. Everybody wants someone to buy their software, and everybody wants someone to renew that software, and everybody wants someone to add to the ASP, add to their annual subscription. Right? Those are the 3 key pillars in the model. And think about it. If I'm the customer, the only reason I'm going to renew with you is you deliver value to me. And that value is so great that I'm willing to spend more money with you and spend it every year on my subscription and even add to the subscription I have because you're delivering value to me. So it's perfect, right? The customer has all the power in the world because they own the subscription itself. If I don't resubscribe, the model has no value. It just dissolves. So it's perfect. So the way that the VARs have value, and it's the same thing they've always had, by the way, it's just delivered differently, is in something that I call the self-service model, right? They deliver self-service. So in the old days, you as a customer would call me up and you say, I need help. And then I'd say, okay, hold on. And I'd push a button so the clock would start. And in the background, the customer's hearing tick, 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 tick. And it's one customer, one consultant, one billable hour. Right? And that has no value to me as the customer. Now it is, look, I've got all this packaged content. I've got all this stuff available. It all has a value to you. You just hired a new employee and you want to train that employee. There's a video out there that I put together on my customer portal, and you're my customer and I value you. And it's very specific to your industry because I'm now focused on a very specific industry. And it teaches that new employee how to enter an AR invoice, or how to do an AP voucher, or how to debit, or how to credit, or how to do a month-end close or a year-end close. And it's delivered as packaged content that you can download and learn from. You're not paying me by the hour to do that, but I've got all that content for you, and that has a value forever, for every time you hire or train or remove anybody. And so you're paying me my X $1,000 a month forever for the software and all of these other offerings that I have. Maybe I've got an office hours. Once a week, you can call me up and you can ask me anything you want. And there is no change order. There is no billable time. There's no statement of work. You just ask whatever you want. I will get you that answer, no charge. Maybe I'm going to give you 3 new reports a year. And maybe I'm going to give you 2 new dashboards a year. And I call that my value pack for 2022, right? And that delivers value to you. So what do you do next year? You renew again, right? So it completely changes the way we view the relationship that we have with our customer, because we have to deliver value, but I can't do it one consultant, one customer, one billable hour. I have to deliver it in real value that they can download and consume. Just because we all love numbers, the next statistics, over 42% of all decision makers are now under 40. So they're all millennials now. Well, they're not all 40%, but they're becoming millennials faster and faster. How do millennials think? How do they learn? How do they do? Right? They've never known another way. They get on their phone, they download something, and they learn it from a phone, for God's sakes. When I grew up, I had a big old thick manual, and I sat down and opened it on a desk, and I, drank a beer, and I learned it the hard way, right? They don't do it that way. They fully expect to download it, look at something, and learn it themselves. And that's 40%, and that's just of the decision makers. The workforce in general just keeps getting younger and younger every day. This is how they learn. So we have to rethink the whole idea of how adults learn. And they don't learn by my coming on site and billing you by the hour and paying for the hotel room and paying for the plane fare so that I can teach you how to enter a credit memo and a debit memo and things that you can easily go in and figure out on your own. That's not value anymore. But what is value is, I'm a company that I had this is a real true story, where it was a very large deal. And the whole deal was sold because we were able to shorten the time it took to enter an order by 3 minutes, because it was office furniture, like the desk you're sitting at, and the office chair and the file cabinets and all that. And when they enter an order, it was the name of the equipment, the desk, and the color. And was it right-handed or left-handed? And was it this? Was it? And they just kept entering, and the order number just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it would take them on average 20 minutes to just enter the order into the system. By saving them 3 minutes, they went from 4th place to 2nd place in that industry. Right? That's the real value. And that's what you'll pay a human to deliver. But you don't pay the human to deliver the things that are the same. 70% of every implementation is the same. There are only so many ways to enter a GL ledger account. There are only so many ways to delete a check, right? So your question about what is the value of the partner, it's creating an environment where I, as a customer, can go and get the answers to the questions I need without having to worry about a statement of work and worrying about billable hours and worrying about change orders and all that stuff. I get the information I need when I need it. If I don't, I can go to the next level, which is a one-to-many thing, like an office hours or stump the consultant kind of thing. And then if I do need to get to a real life human being, I understand, okay, that's fine. But I have a very specific, very unique need, and I'm willing to pay for the real value that is getting delivered to me, right? And that's usually what I call the last mile. So if you think about what is the value of a VAR anyway to the customer, they're the last mile, right? The publisher creates software that gets sold. But what makes software a solution? Well, it's taking the software and integrating it to 2 or 3 other things, and maybe talking to a piece of equipment out on a shop floor, and it's customizing a couple things specific to that customer, and the dashboards and the reports and all that stuff. I've turned that software into a real solution. I know that solution as the publisher. The vendor, the software publisher, I know that as a partner. The software publisher can never know all that. They'll never be able to offer the same support as the partner can. There is a real need and a real value in a partner. That has not changed and will not change. ERP is still too complex, right? It's way too complex. It's not commoditized at all. And we're not there yet. A very long answer to your short question. Sorry.
No, this is great. I love this. So this might turn into like free Geoff Ashley consulting for Tim Rodman, but maybe we'll call this a use case. That really resonates with me because, as someone who's done some blogging, once you've done some blog articles that, reach a lot of people with the Google search, it's really hard to go back to writing one-on-one emails. Really hard because you get a taste for that like one-to-many type of thing, right? And so,
it doesn't scale. It does not scale.
It doesn't scale. Yeah, exactly. So, you said one thing in there that resonated with me, and that was, hey, I've got a video on my customer portal. Yeah. I'm looking for the practical tool here that you actually use to accomplish to keep someone in your little area. And, so one thing I've done recently, I blocked out 2 months to do this. So I kind of shut everything else down, sat down and pushed out a video training course on generic inquiries and pivot tables in Acumatica. Very specific area focused on reporting. It's what I like to do. Yep. And then I'm pairing that with my independent consulting focused on reporting. I really like the pairing. I mean, I'm still doing the billable hour consulting thing, but now I've got something that can scale, and it's in the form of a video training course. Yep. But here's why I struggle with it. So let's say I'm a VAR, let's say I did a similar thing. Let's say I did, let's stick with video training course for now, because that's something I know I can deliver. That's a one-to-many type of thing. Let's say I build a video training course implementing, the manufacturing edition for, a specific area of manufacturing. Yep. And now I don't have to get on the phone. I could hit as many customers as I want with that video training course and then handle their questions that are on top of that, right? But here's why I struggle with that. If I'm a VAR, then what I have right now in the form of video training course is of value to customers who are related to an Acumatica VAR. Now, I'm not even a VAR, so it's a little easier for me. But let's say I'm a VAR that builds something that's useful to someone who's not technically my client. Mm-hmm. How do you cross customers and service with your unique content someone who's not your official client of record with Acumatica?
Oh man, well, there's a whole lot of things in there. So the first thing is, one of the things that you mentioned that I'm not sure is the way I view or approach it, which is you say, you create all this content and then you hit the customers with all this content. It's not that you're creating a bunch of content that you are then throwing out there for people to find, right? The content is I mean, they are going to find it via search engines and all that kind of stuff, but the content in and of itself is not your marketing engine, right? The content is real value that exists for the customers. So think of it this way: good, better, best, right? So you're gonna sell real value. You're gonna sell some solution to your customer, and that customer is going to have an option. They can get your good, which is $100 a month, and you supply them these kinds of things, and it will include a lot of that content you created. Then there's the better, and it's all those things that are in good, plus they'll get access to you, maybe one business day a week or something like that. I don't know. You'll decide what that is. And then best case scenario would be whole initiatives, right? Where you're working with them one-on-one to do it, because that can't scale as much, but you can then charge more for it. And so it's the packaging of all of that content and value. It's not the creating of value that in and of itself is your deliverable or is your marketing stuff. Am I making sense what I'm saying?
Are you talking about the difference between public and private content, or maybe
Well, I guess, yes. But again, I don't look at it public versus private or anything. I look at it as I have to create a value for my customers that is worthy of a yearly subscription. I have to create enough content and enough value. And by the way, since we used Acumatica as an example, they're going to do 2 releases a year. I have to also update all of that content and keep it current to the new release, which is why it's not just thousands of pieces of content that you're throwing out there to market. It's got to be somewhat linear. You're taking somebody down a journey and you're putting the content they need to get that job done, and then you're managing it and you're improving it and you're updating it and whatever as you go. So it's not really public versus private. It's really the definition of what my value is packaged for consumption. right? So if that makes sense. So now, if I create something like you did, if I create something where I can train, what you created was horizontal. I can train people across many different industry sectors, many different whatevers, about how to do the queries, about how to save the value, about how to create their own value. You have two ways to bring that to market. You can do it through partners, where they would take it and put it on their customer portal, but then they would be able to add the value to it, which is now they can use it to, how does an automotive aftermarket company create these queries and include these things? And maybe they talk about an industry catalog that you want to be able to download and sort and search and whatever using these tools. So that's something you would do with a partner. With the customers, of course, that is a customer, that is a generic marketing campaign where you're actually going out and getting customers. You're now in competition with VARs for this certain aspect of customer value, right? But that's your business model. You're delivering it's not using this content to find a customer. It's using this content to get a customer to say, you have enough value that I'll pay you a subscription, and I'll keep paying you a subscription as long as you maintain that value. Does that make
And
sense?
I think we're talking about the same thing. So like what I've done is I did a video training course. It's got a core set of content that gets you from 0 to 60 on generic inquiries and pivot tables. And
Mhm.
then I've got ongoing content that I'm contributing on an ongoing basis that responds to actual questions. All right. Now that I've got the lay of the land on what the tool is and how to use the tool, how do I apply the tool to this scenario and that scenario and the other scenario? So there's some ongoing value there. And the idea is that you then renew on an annual basis for access to that ongoing value, right?
Right.
And for me, the mechanism is a video training course, but it's kind of like a living and breathing video training course that has additional lessons. And these are higher quality lessons than you would find on YouTube. It's, you know, something that's going to save you time because yeah, you could maybe go out and find this information buried in forums somewhere, but you're going to spend a lot more time to do that, piece things together. This is more of a walk you through the approach. So there's less time invested on your side.
Right.
That's the idea of video training.
Right. And in your case, again, there's two routes to market. There's direct to the customer. And so the value here has to be, you can't have one and done, right? If somebody buys your tool and then never does anything again with it, that doesn't scale. That's not the model. The model is they buy your tool and you continue to enhance it and improve it, and they continue to pay you for it. On the VAR side, the whole idea is, look, what does it make sense for 300 partners to create 300 pieces of the same content? Or does it make sense for you to do it because you've got the domain expertise and use and sell it through the partners and give a margin? The customer still gets that same value. The subscription is probably still the same subscription price. You're getting less, but that's because you had less cost of sales to get it. The partners are doing all of that for you. But the idea is it can't be one and done, right? That's what we're trying to get
Yes.
out of and get away from. That's why I hate when somebody says, you know, they're alluding to, I create content and I market the content out. No, that's not what you want to do. You want to create content that is the value in and of itself, and it continues to be enhanced, and I pay for that. And you market that you have that, right?
And I think that's the public to private side of it, right? You have to have the portal that someone pays you for access to, right?
Yeah, it can't be one and done. You just, it's the same concept as one consultant, one customer, one billable hour. Can't create something once and be done. You create something that has value that could be consumed over and over and over again. Yep.
So here's my struggle though with it, with the current Acumatica VAR model. You know, my struggle is on the reporting side, but I'll just throw another example out there. You know, let's say I create something that walks you through how to utilize the smart sheet integration. Just a random
Okay.
example I thought of. Okay. Something very specific
Mhm.
that maybe a customer didn't need when they implemented, but they need it 2 years later, 3 years later, right?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
way that most VARs work right now, as far as I understand it, is you usually don't do work with an Acumatica customer unless they're your official client of record. But if I now create some content that's not content, I create something that's private that someone subscribes to that is valuable to a whole slew of Acumatica customers out there, right?
Yep.
That
Yep.
they want to pay me for. That's a little sticky there, right? Because now I'm crossing into someone else's territory. What do you say to partners who are concerned about that?
Well, again, it goes back to what we started the whole, well, I don't know if it's where we started the whole conversation, but very early on in the conversation where I said, look, you got to focus. No one can be horizontal anymore. You can't create enough content. I mean, if you wanted to go after manufacturing, well, manufacturing isn't even a vertical. Manufacturing is very horizontal. There are literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of different industries within manufacturing. So if I say I'm going to be all things to manufacturing, I'll never have enough content to differentiate myself, because remember, they're going in and they're downloading up to 70% of their decisions made before they talk to me. So to your point, if I'm a VAR and I want to own every possible interaction with every possible prospect or customer, I'm going to fail.
What about this? Is it realistic in 2022 for a VAR to think that they can own every possible interaction with their own set of clients who are their, who they're the official VAR of record for?
I'm not going to say you never say always, you never say never. So I'm not going to say it's not possible, but think how much content you'd have to have. And remember that all of that content creation, well, not all, a lot of that content creation, the majority of it is non-billable. So there's not a huge incentive for them to take everybody off what today is still, unfortunately, the vast majority of VAR services revenue still come from hourly billing. It's got to transition, and it will, but hasn't yet. And you can't flip a switch, right? You can't. The VARs can't do that. So they're getting there, and they're getting there little by little, but that takes time. And so the issue is, but I got to have enough value that my customers renew. They have to renew. So it's a tight wire. There's a subset of expertise that differentiates you as a partner within an industry sector. It differentiates you that you have this. That stuff you have to do, right? That needs to be you. Now, if somebody creates content that's generic that goes on top of that, then you have two choices. You just drop generic content on top of it. You can't expect to get any money or a lot of money for that. Or you can go to someone like you and say, look, I want to license that, but I'm going to add very specific, again, corrugated box manufacturing content to it, so that it's specific to my segment, differentiates me. And I didn't have to create it, so I saved all that time, money, effort, energy, non-billable, whatever. So we're talking about a culture shift that we haven't got all the way through. VARs historically have been very stingy about sharing anything. They want everything. In the old, again, when I started as a VAR, I wanted the hardware, the software, the cabling. I mean, I wanted all of it, and we did all of it because we could. Now you can't. Number one, you can't because of the complexity just of ERP, but number two, you can't because the model doesn't allow. You're making so much. We're only making about a third of what we used to make in the on-prem world. So we've got to get it sold a lot, and then we got to have them all renew. And it doesn't allow for that. The one consultant, one customer, one billable hour. We can't scale. Can't get there fast enough. So, what you're saying is a valid question and concern. But the answer is the one people don't want to know, which is, look, you don't have time to do it all. So just be looking for those opportunities. And when they come up, start working on a partnership, work on a way of getting more stuff faster, right? Everybody can embed links from their site to your site. So the customers don't have to know that they didn't write it if that's what they're concerned with. It'll look like they wrote it, but it'll go to your site. They'll contract for it, and boom, you're off and running.
So, but yeah, I think it's that. And I think you've touched on it a couple times in here. I like your word stingy. It's not just that, it's a level of trust, I think. Right. And I think a lot of it,
historic trust or distrust.
And I think a lot of it just comes down to the nature of a typical publisher like Acumatica's, the way they compensate their ecosystem, right? They've got one connection for a particular customer that gets compensated for that relationship.
Well, and you're talking about partner record,
the content. Yes, partner of record. Yes.
Yes. That is a part of the complexity that adds to all of this. It is, and I'd be lying to say that it wasn't. But it's not the biggest component of it, but it is significant, right? Because,
what would you say the biggest component is?
Here's the thing. For most partners, well, the reason that the partner of record is an issue is because somebody wants that new customer acquisition number because it impacts your margins. But in your case, where you're adding value on top of that, you're not looking for the new customer acquisition number. So it's moot, right? So that's what I meant when I said it's not really the main issue, or shouldn't be, for a partner. It's so ingrained just historically into them that they don't want to risk losing a customer by exposing that customer to anybody else. But that was in a world where everything was done on site, and for one customer, one consultant, one bill of hour. But now the whole world is I research it, I find it, I download it, I use it. And so ultimately, they're just downloading and they're implementing, or they're downloading and provisioning new functionality into their software. It's on my cell phone. I go to the Play Store and I download something, and in 30 seconds, I'm off and playing. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Right? And oh, by the way, the marketplace. So, Acumatica has what they call the Acumatica marketplace. That is theoretically the answer to that type of thing, where you can post your value out there, customers can find it, and then Acumatica has worked out within the terms and conditions, one agreement, customer signs it, and everybody gets their piece. That's why I say partner of record shouldn't necessarily be that all determining thing. Where it comes into play is when it's major pieces of functionality and it drives the sale. And I want to have the sale registered to me, because as a partner, that influences my margins, right? I need X number.
Yeah, and that's for new. Yeah, I'm talking about someone who's been on Acumatica for a couple of years, right?
Yeah,
that's not an issue there.
That's correct. And again, so as long as my customer, as long as I'm delivering value to my customer's renewing, I'm accomplishing the goal, right? If they can find something on a marketplace, download it and run, and my cost of sales was virtually zero to make that happen. I need to understand that as the value of the model. That's why I'm in the model. That's why the customers are in the model. Again, I go back to it's the first time, what the publisher wants, what the VAR wants, and what the customer wants. They're all in alignment here. We don't have to be fighting one another. We have to be delivering value. And I'll pay for it if I perceive it as real value.
And I think, so going back to the VAR record, I think, so here's a scenario where I think the trust issue comes in. Let's say I'm a VAR, I sold Acumatica, I implement it for a customer, and that customer has been running on it for 3 years. And let's say they started off as a manufacturing company and they implemented Acumatica manufacturing, and now they're pretty self-sufficient on that, right? That particular area of Acumatica.
Yep.
But now let's say they're getting further into it. They get 3 years down the line, and now they want to get involved with Amazon's Alexa voice command stuff on the shop floor, right?
Yep.
And so that's like their biggest need 3 years later. And maybe they find a VAR who's got expertise in that area. And I think that what could potentially happen is you build up this really great even marketing engine and this great offering that is around that specific thing. And now you've got a customer who needs that specific thing, and they know it's probably going to take them like a year to fully implement it. Do they have to then change to that other VAR to be able to work with them, right? It's this kind of trust thing. Like, what is the original VAR offering me anymore if what I need has changed? And I think that's maybe the trust level of concern. How do you address that?
Well, again, the flaw, and it's not a flaw in your thinking, it's a flaw in that kind of thinking, is that, first of all, one of the key things you mentioned there is the customer starts looking for this other new functionality. Well, if I have a relationship that is so close with my customer that I'm keeping them renewing year after year after year, why don't I know that they're looking, and why aren't I bringing it to them?
No, maybe right? But you don't, right. You haven't built up the expertise in that area. Maybe you don't even want to, right? But someone else has, and you even know that they have, and you let the customer know about them. Then
that becomes just non-compete, non-disclosure kind of, you control that with agreements, and you control that with the program itself controls that. The idea that I can, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. I can't know everything, and I can't control everything, and I can't be all things to all people anymore. So it really boils, and again, the customer wins. It really boils down to, ultimately, I have to have my customer's best interests in mind. They have to perceive a value. If I can find something they really want, and they can download it and use it, and I don't have to go out and write it or create it or pick up a whole new product line, because how many of my customers are doing this? Now, if every one of my customers is doing this, then I should be contacting that other VAR and becoming a sub VAR for them and getting paid margin. But if I've got one customer or three customers that are going to do this, why am I being quote unquote selfish? Again, it's a culture. In the old days, that's where the revenue came from. It's all we got. It wasn't recurring. It's all we got. If we didn't sell anything to them, we got nothing. So we got to distance ourselves from that culture and say, no, look, all I got to do is continue to deliver value. They're going to renew. They'll pay my subscription because of that. And everybody wins. So again, if it's a one-off thing, don't get distracted by it. Work with the partner that spends their lives there and are good at it. Get a margin for it. You can maintain the customer relationship because we can do that with again, agreements and contracts between the partners, not the customer. They don't get put in the middle of that. But if every one of your customers needs it, then you haven't done your job anyway. Right? Go find it, validate it, certify it that it works, and then start selling it to all of the customers because you've got a close relationship with them and know they need it. Right? It's delivering value. Why am I paying you next year again? Because I delivered value.
No, this is good. Yeah, I think we think very similarly. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here.
Well, no.
And maybe this is why when you say you rattle off like contract, like it's no big deal. I mean, maybe that's where a VAR really needs a Geoff Ashley, because the contract side can get sticky and the trust side can get sticky. But I completely agree with you. It's not just the way it should work. That is the way it works today. Whether we like it or not, the reality is people are going to find stuff and want to do it with whether or not you're on board. It doesn't matter to them, right? So you might as well join the conversation.
Well, let's put the last slice of heaven on all this, which is, look, your customer is going to have an experience with you. And so if you're screwing around with all this stuff, trying to be all things to all people, and you're trying to hold it all close, and because of that, you deliver a bad experience to your customer, guess what? That customer is going to put a review out there, and that review is going to sit there forever because that's the nature of the internet. You can't afford to be playing in those old style cultures and those old style rules. You got to come up to the new way of doing business, which is delivering real value. And if you don't deliver it, let somebody who does deliver it, but through you or with you, right? The through or with kind of thing, which we've always had. It's just now it becomes mission critical. 61% of people who buy today read somewhere between 11 and 50 reviews before buying. So you can't afford to be screwing these things up because everybody's going to know about it. So you don't fight for the one, you fight for the many. If you're going to have a one-off thing, find somebody that does it real well, let them get their thing that they do many times. You get a finder's fee, you get a referral fee, you get a subscription every year that they renew that piece of functionality. And you should be happy with that. That's the model, right? It works really well. So, and it does benefit everybody in this equation. The publisher benefits because the ASPs get bigger. The VARs benefit because the customer keeps renewing. The customer benefits because they got new value in there, and the whole ecosystem benefits because there's a play for me. Back to the whole, what's the value of a VAR going forward?
That's cool. I like it. I think the actually seeing it work, in a specific case is where it would maybe convince the VAR. I feel like the most hesitant one, again, playing devil's advocate, is the VAR. I could see how the customer wins. I could see how Acumatica wins. The VAR I could see being the most hesitant in the equation. But
that's because they haven't
your thinking.
They haven't made the shift yet. Again, everybody's in transition. They've still got, think about it. I've still got 4 consultants sitting on a bench that I'm still tracking their utilization, and they're not billable this week. Well, what am I motivated to try to do then? Sell their time.
Sure.
Right. So why would I buy your report writing tool when I can go out there and bill that time and create a report once?
Sure.
And you can see how distracting that is, because I created it one time. I can't sell it 500 times for a subscription because I just one customer, one consultant, one billable hour. That's the wrong way to do it. But I'm highly incented because I haven't made this shift yet. So it is the partner 100% that is the center of all of this, because we're in the process of making this shift from professional services on site, one consultant. We're making the shift to self-service with value delivered forever and billed as a subscription, right? That's the reason. It has nothing to do with partner record and all that other kind of stuff. You can work through that.
Yeah, you're responding almost to the market and what people want, not so much the way things are.
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's a very hard transition. You've got consultants that have been doing this 20, 30 years. Now you're asking them to change. You're asking them to take what their value is. What is my value as a consultant? Well, not theoretically,
That's
realistically.
a scary question. Yeah.
Well, my value is what's in my head historically, right? Because that's how I can charge more per hour than you, or how I can be 100% utilized and you're not. It's because I have more value in my head. Now I'm saying to those consultants, take it out of your head, package it, and make it available for anybody in the world to use. But then what's left? What am I? Right. So, and by the way, a lot, because you're delivering something that gets sold 1,000 times. The value of the business increases dramatically. You can scale, right? You could take that 20 years and you could start to package all of it instead of just delivering it once every now and then for those billable hours that are in that statement of work. But that's a shift that has to occur. That's a culture shift that has to occur. And that's what's driving all this hesitation you see is because they're trying to hold tight to every hour that they can
Sure.
try to build. And it's not an evil thing, by the way. This is not the evil world, right? This is not VARs being greedy, any of that kind of stuff. It's literally, it is a transition and everybody's making it, but we're in various stages of getting through it.
I want to be respectful of your time here, but I want to ask in the last few minutes, you sound just as passionate now as you did when I heard you at Acumatica giving on stage talks about this stuff. What's it been like for you the last few weeks? What's different now that you're back on your own versus being at a publisher?
Yeah, I guess the difference for me is scalability, right? So if you think about why did I end up at Acumatica in the first place? I had my own company. Why did I go to Acumatica? I had my own company for years and was doing really well. My oldest daughter, is actually also my accountant. And she still reminds me all the time, I made a lot more money when I had my own company than I did working at Acumatica. And that's nothing against Acumatica, by the way. It's a very good company. They were very good to me. But the whole point of this is that I build teams, right? That's what I do. That's my passion. That's what I love to do. So the big transition for me is this idea of moving back to where I'm working with one partner on one specific thing and trying to drive them to make some kind of a change, but I don't really control it all that much. I'm a consultant outside looking in. So, that's the biggest transition for me is I went from, recruiting dozens of partners, enabling many dozens of partners, and ultimately managing hundreds of partners and trying to build them all and creating this huge ecosystem that was dominant in the market. And we were on our way. We were definitely on our way. There was still a lot more we could have done and will do together over time. But that was the passion, and that's the reason for going to Acumatica. So, the passion is still there. I have to figure out how now to deliver.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah, I have to deliver it one off now, which is okay, right? Which is good, and the partners benefit as a result. By the way, I'm doing the same things. I'm delivering my services as a subscription. They're paying me a monthly subscription to get all the value. And then, so I have to scale. So now I have to be packaging a lot of this stuff. Guess what? I'm not there yet. So I'm scrambling like crazy to try to get it packaged as quickly as I can and then sell it 100 times. So, and it won't be 100, by the way, but you get the idea.
So is there a Geoff Ashley video training course in your future? Or
yeah. Ultimately, there will be topics. I mean, I don't know if you were ever in my practice owner and executive workshop, but it'll be stuff like that. There'll be content that I create that is appropriate for one-to-many consumption, and then the partners will call me and we'll take that and we'll hone in on what specifically is unique to them that we work on, right? And that might be actual time that they would pay me for. But right now, the clients I'm working with, they pay me a bulk amount each month, and I deliver value. And basically, I start every engagement with define success for me. And then that's what we say. And I can't deviate. That's the one thing that's good about all this is because I make less theoretically by saying to them, I'm going to deliver all this value, but I'm going to do it within this small amount of money per month. So I have to actually be extremely focused on, I can't just go rambling off on a conversation for 4 hours. I can't just disappear for a while and do one thing for a partner because that doesn't scale. And if you're going to charge less, then you have to scale. So it does keep me extremely focused, which is good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear your thoughts on this stuff. I know it's both challenging and exciting at the same time. I think I can hear the overall optimism though in your way of looking at things, and
Yep.
it's great. I can tell you're passionate about the stuff, and I totally agree with you as far as, not just what's the future. It's the way things
Yep.
are now,
It's
and
present.
it's a
It's the way
matter
they
of
buy.
just
This is
just learning to join what's already happening, right?
it's the
For
way they buy. We just have to
yeah,
acknowledge it and accept it. Yep. Hopefully you and your listeners will find it of value. I hope so. That obviously is the goal. Obviously, if you get feedback and there's more we need to do to clarify, let me know. We'll do some kind of a follow-up or some kind of a blog post, but something. Let me know if there's some follow-up that I can do to help.
do you have another 5-10 minutes at another angle on all this, or do you got another
Um,
meeting to run to?
I got I had a meeting that I moved because of ours. It was supposed to start at the half hour, and I said, well, I'll be done at 4:45. So as soon as I'm done, I'm supposed to go into this meeting. So I mean, if it's literally like 1 or 2 minutes, I could probably do it. But if
It's
it's not,
okay. Yeah, it would be a little bit longer. No problem. Maybe I can get you back on again in 6 months or so. We'll find out what you're up to, who you're working with. But get great to hear your perspective on things. And also, I just want to thank you for your time at Acumatica and your contributions to building out the channel, which has been a very successful approach for Acumatica. So, thank you on behalf of, all the VARs for Acumatica and how well it's doing. Thanks for all your contributions to it.
you're welcome. I love the VAR. The VARs are my life. They always have been. They always will be. So thanks.
Well, I'll let you get to your next meeting. Thanks again for coming on, and take care.
All right. Thank you. Take care, Tim.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of AUGforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.